Hi everybody, this is Ben from J-Spec Imports, and today I'm going to be reviewing an S180 series Crown Majesta, and a spoiler alert for this review, I really like these cars. The S180 series Crown Majestas were released in Japan in 2004 and made up to about 2008-2009. They come in three variants. This is the V8 4.3 litre Crown Majesta. This is the top of the line luxury model. There was also a 3 litre V6 version and a 3.5 litre V6 version as well. Those are slightly less luxurious but a little bit sportier. The V8 Majesta was Toyota's flagship luxury model. If you walked into a Toyota dealership in the mid-2000s, this was basically the highest spec, most expensive car you could get. People might say, well, the Toyota Century is the flagship and the highest spec model, but I think you'd agree, if you know those cars, that's not really something that is really appealing to the mainstream. So this was basically, this had all of the tech and all of the luxury that Toyota knew how to throw at them at the time. The V8 Majesta has slightly different front and rear ends to the Athlete and Royal Saloon models, so the 3 and 3.5 litre models. Again, this is supposed to be a bit more luxurious. Those cars are slightly sportier, but between the doors they are basically the same. Obviously the V8 Majesta has pretty much all of the luxury features, whereas the Athletes and the Royal Saloons, they didn't have quite all the bells and whistles. This is a 4.3 litre V8 Crown Majesta. These engines have 208 kilowatts claimed by Toyota. I'm not sure if I believe that. I think it's actually a little bit higher. The first time I drove one of these, I stepped out of the 235 kilowatt V36 Skyline, and this felt just as fast, and this weighs a couple of hundred kilos more. So I think that figure might actually be a little bit pessimistic. I've also driven the 188 kilowatt 3 litre version. They're not bad, they're not super fast, but it's more than enough. I haven't driven the 235 kilowatt 3.5 litre. If they are faster than these, then I think they're fairly impressive. This is mated to a 6-speed Tiptronic auto. The Tiptronic system is passable, I suppose. It's not totally demoralising like some of the very early Tiptronic models, but at the same time it's not a razor-sharp one where the instant you change the gear, it snaps into the next cog, but it's perfectly acceptable. But of course, most of the time you just leave it in auto and drive it like a regular car. I'll talk a little bit later during my test drive about what these cars are actually like to drive and what I actually think of them, but in terms of features and gadgets, these are really packed full of a lot of tech and pretty much everything Toyota had in their arsenal in the mid-2000s. Nothing is too gimmicky actually. I quite like the styling of these cars. I think certainly from the exterior they're quite a handsome car, if you will, and the interior is nice as well. The interior is not particularly flash. In fact, Toyota didn't really change their interior design that much over probably the last 15 years. So, for example, I used to own a 1989 Toyota Celsior, or a Lexus LS400 to some, and there's a lot of DNA of that car in the interior here. Some of the switches are in the same spot, the switch gear is sort of similar, it has the same font, but I think that's not a bad thing. Toyota didn't try to be all stylish, it's just going to date quickly. They knew their market as well. This is, of course, being as expensive as it was, aimed at the slightly older gentleman, shall we say. So they didn't want it to be ultra stylish and ultra modern, and as a result it hasn't dated at all. It feels quite nice inside. This is being a C-type Majesta, which is the very top spec model. This has a lot of options. If these cars had been sold in Australia when new, they would have been around about $110,000, and that's in 2005 money. So they really were packed with a lot of stuff, and there's a real quality feel to it, inside and out. So I'll show you some of the features that it has. This is a C-type Majesta, which is the top spec luxury model. So this comes with a lot of features as standard. These include a 4.3 litre V8 engine with VVTi, 6-speed auto transmission with Tiptronic mode, height adjustable air suspension with sport mode, front power seats, rear power seats, heated front seats, heated rear seats, rear and audio climate controls, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 airbags, a power steering column, 3 user memory positions for the seats and steering column, smart key access, push button start, dual zone climate control, rear parking camera, rear power shade, rear pull-up sunshades, cruise control, heads-up display, steering wheel controls, Bluetooth phone connectivity, stability and traction control, a 6 CD stacker, a mini disc player, air purifier, directional aiming headlights and leather seats. The only other options which were selectable at time of purchase, which are of any significance, are whether the car has parking sensors, factory sunroof, and fairly rare rear massage seats. I'll talk a little bit as I test drive the car about some of the luxury features it has, but it's worth noting that in the back is quite a nice place to be as well. Not only do you have a power rear sunshade and also these fairly nifty shades on the sides as well, which unfortunately you have to use with your hands, but there's also various controls for rear climate control, and you also have some control over the audio sound system, and finally you also have adjusting seats in the back as well, which is a nice little added touch. I'm 6 feet tall, and as you can see I've got fairly good legroom, certainly better than most cars. This is all in keeping really with the large luxury sedan feel that this car goes for. Driving a Crown Majesta, the first thing that you realise is just how nice the interior is to be in. It's very quiet. The ride with this air suspension system is really good. There is a sport mode which you can turn it into, and that does make an appreciable difference to how stiff the suspension is. It's not sports car crazy, but it is stiffer than the standard setting. But it's not really what this car is about. It's supposed to be a really nice ride, and that's exactly what this is. The Athlete and the Royal Saloon, the non-Majesta versions with the regular suspension, the non-air suspension, obviously they don't ride quite as well. They are supposed to be the slightly sportier versions, but I've actually never found that this car, for its size and weight, it actually handles corners fairly well. The power is very good. I mean, if I put my foot down here, more than you could possibly need. And it does it in a really effortless way. It's as though it's not really trying very hard. The closest car I can think of, and I know it sounds like I'm name dropping here, but I'll be honest, it's not like I drive cars like this every day, but the closest car I can think of that it's similar to is an early 90s Bentley. When you put your foot down in one of those, you really move, but it just does it in a manner that sort of suggests it's not really trying very hard, and that's what this is like. You do get a nice little bit of a V8 burble when you really give it the beans, but it's otherwise a very quiet and very nice place to be. The arrangement of everything is all fairly logical. The cruise control, for example, is the same little stalk that Toyota has used for literally the last 30 years, and rightly so. It's just such a smart and intuitive to use system. All of the switches are in an easy to access place. There's nothing too essential that is hidden down near your knees or anything like that, like some poorly designed cars have. There are some down here, but they're the ones you would very rarely need to access. So, for example, the petrol flap release, and all of the switchgear is fairly easy to read. If I'm making one criticism, I suppose it would be that the temperature for the climate controls is, in some lighting conditions, a little bit difficult to read, but that's really nitpicking. All of the materials used are clearly of a high quality. The leather feels nice. I'm always a big fan of the sort of the smoother parts on the steering wheel here. You have the automatic swing controls for the climate control, so it's just a really nice car to drive, and that's exactly what this car is supposed to be. Driving the car is where all of the luxury features really come into play, and all of the nice ergonomics come together. It's very comfortable. The climate control system is I find quite good in that it gets to the temperature you want. It doesn't constantly blow hot or cold air in your face trying to decide what to do. And you've got heated seats and a bunch of other options there if you want them. I quite like the power steering wheel system, the way it pulls away when you get out of the car and comes at you when you're in there. Toyota have done that on a number of their bigger luxury cars, and it's just a nice little touch. All of the controls that are down here near the armrest are easy to access. It's not stuff that you really fiddle around with much, and everything that you might need is pretty much on the steering wheel or within close reach. So I find it a really nice car to drive, and particularly the way it handles bumps in the road. It's never flustered, it's always very smooth. If you go for one of the non-airbag suspension models, you do get a slight improvement in the handling with those, but there's nothing really to complain about with the handling in the V8 Majesta. Keep in mind, this is a large luxury car. It's never going to be agile and nimble, and it's never going to mash you into the side of the door when you're pulling high Gs while you're cornering. But for what it's supposed to do, handle reasonably well and be comfortable, it's great. The steering is a nice combination of being fairly light, but at the same time you do have feedback. I'm obviously not going to be driving it too hard here, but when you push it to its limits, you do get a little bit of feedback. Eventually you just get some understeer, of course. again, this is hardly a sports car, but it's exactly what you would expect for a high-end luxury car, and that's the theme of the Crown Majesta really in a nutshell. It has one job, which is to be a really nice big luxury sedan, and it does that really well. You really do want for nothing. I'm trying for this review to think of what are some of the criticisms I could make of this car, and there aren't too many. I mean, if you're being a little bit picky, okay, yes, the fuel economy is not going to be as good as a smaller vehicle, but hey, it's a 4.3 litre V8, it's a big luxury sedan, you can't have it all. Buying these cars is, relatively speaking, not too difficult. Most of them have been reasonably well looked after. They don't have any common problems that afflict a large proportion of them. At J-Spec, we want to be a little bit choosy, so still, maybe 1 in 20 or 1 in 30 are only good enough by our standards, but that's actually better than most cars of this period. For quite large cars, and I don't know, maybe it's just the sorts of people who own them, they're usually not too scratched up or dinged up. The interior is reasonably hard wearing, the leather is pretty good. There are some exceptions though. The real Achilles heel of these cars, from a purely cosmetic point of view, is the dashboards. I don't know what Toyota did wrong when they designed these, but the dashboards have a tendency to have cracks and have parts peeling off them. It's not the end of the world to fix it up, but make sure it's been fixed well. If you can see that the repair has been done, it's probably only going to get worse over time. The other common issue, and when I say common, it's not that common, but we do see it from time to time, can be issues with the air suspension. These are certainly better than the earlier 90s Toyotas with the air suspension. So, for example, the first generation Toyota Celsior or Lexus LS400, they had pretty common problems with the air suspension. With these S180 series, they nutted out most of the problems. Occasionally we will see one that is sagging a little bit at the rear, or that won't lift up properly. If that's the case, avoid it. There's no particularly easy fix other than just simply to replace parts, which is fairly expensive. But that's the most common mechanical issue that they really seem to encounter. Engine-wise, they're all pretty good. They're quite good from a rust point of view. They don't ever really seem to have a lot of rust underneath. I guess the rust proofing just must be quite good. So as a general rule, they're quite well built cars, and that's a really good thing in terms of being able to find one, and also being able to have a good selection of good cars out there. Now, in terms of availability, if I ask you what is, in the case of a Crown Majesta, what is the perfect car for you? I bet you I'm reading your mind here. You're going to say, I want one in black, I want one with black leather, and I want one with a sunroof. That's what 90% of the people who want one of these cars who approaches me says that they're after. The problem is, because everybody wants that, it is highly sought after and therefore highly priced. And they're also not that common with that combination. So that's all a bit of a recipe for high prices. Making life a little bit harder still, when they've got a black body, they tend to look a little bit poorer on average, because they show up every little scratch and dent, as opposed to lighter coloured cars. And also then, if it's a black car, it's more likely to maybe have been owned by a young guy in Japan who maybe smoked in the car a lot, so that's making it harder still. So that's a bit of a tricky combination, and in fact they're so sought after that sometimes we see black ones in Japan that are colour changes from silver or white, and I never would recommend one of those. I think they look gross when you pop the bonnet, and the quality of the paint job is rarely particularly that good. So if you can be flexible on the specs, it really does help, particularly if you just are willing to accept a colour other than black. It really does make a big difference. Most people want leather. Just a rough guess, about 60 to 70% of them in Japan have leather, so that's not too hard to do. They come with a choice of a beige leather or a black leather. Everybody seems to want the black leather. Again, it limits your choices a little bit, but that's not too impossible. People like them with a bit of a VIP style look sometimes. I'd recommend, frankly, do that yourself. If you want one with some nice wheels, buy the wheels later on. It gives you many more options in terms of choosing the car, and that way you get to choose the exact set of wheels that you want. If you want to lower it a little bit, you can get aftermarket air suspension controllers, and that way you can set it as low as you want. You can have it scraping along the ground on the chassis rails if you want. If you want one with a body kit, that really starts to limit choices, and the body kits, they usually look great in photos, but in person the fitment's usually not that good. They're a little bit wavy, the paint match is not always that great, so even when you do come across a rare one with a body kit, it's often actually you know, a case of being good from afar but far from good. So that's my review of a Toyota Crown S180 series. As you may have guessed, I really like these cars. I think they're really good value for money. I'm not going to talk pricing here because who knows how long this video will be around for, but it'll probably be out of date fairly quickly. But they're really nice cars. I think it's a great car for something with a bit of luxury. I love the styling of them. I think they you know, have a real quality look to them. They're really well built, they're reliable. There's really not much to dislike about them. If obviously you want something like a sports car, well, this is not aimed at you. Or if you want something with, you know, to move 8 kids around, well, there are other cars for you. But if you want a nice big luxury sedan, something really comfy with really good features and some nice gadgets, and something that has a little bit of poke as well, then I reckon these are great cars. And it doesn't take much if you want to give them a bit of a VIP look. You know, whack a nice big set of wheels on them, add an air suspension controller and lower it a little bit, and you've got something really cool and a little bit stylish as well. So yeah, I think these are great cars. I love them.